Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello and good morning to you and a welcome to March 28th. I have with me today a woman that I have such admiration for. I'm sorry, I'm going to embarrass you just for a second. I'm in awe of her. For 30 years, she has been with Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, almost all of that time as the president and CEO. And she's not, insane yet. She's not living in a padded cell. I mean...
Well, thank you. That's such a nice introduction,
right.
Liz. Thank you.
God.
No, that's very kind. Thank you.
You know, not most of us don't have to go to work and walk through a phalanx of people screaming at us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that can be challenging at times, but we have our rules. You just keep walking.
You just keep walking.
You keep walking. You know what you're doing, and we at Planned Parenthood, I think we're all very committed to our mission, and that is making sure that people have access to the birth control and reproductive health care they need, that they get education so that they can make the right choices, and we advocate for people. We are strong advocates so that people have these choices and can make their own decisions, and that's very empowering.
You know, you just said access to birth control. Is that even a controversy? Do some of you know that when I was already of age, a woman on my own, could not access birth control because I was not married?
Yes.
And even people who were married.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
In some states, right?
Right. It was 1965.
Is that Griswold?
Yes, when birth control became legal for married people. And it was some years later when it became legal for unmarried people. Yeah, it's hard to believe, isn't it?
I know. I mean, I was already a fully formed, sexually active woman.
Yeah, and that didn't mean people weren't accessing it. It just wasn't legal.
No.
So, people were over time getting newer methods were becoming available, and Planned Parenthood was a big part of that. I do like to tell the story that we've been around for 89 years here in Pittsburgh, over 100 nationally, and we have been working on these issues for all those years. And I think that's part of the reason we're a national organization with a very successful history of helping women, empowering women, bringing better and new methods of birth control to people and making those available, and that's part of the controversy.
Stop and think of just the title of the organization, Planned Parenthood. What could be more benign than, okay, let's help people control their parenthood, whether they're ready to have a family, all of this. And that Planned Parenthood has become such a, the boogeyman of the right. It's just amazing. But we really want to focus today on the latest attack, because this one strikes me as frightening, truly frightening. I mean, you're under constant threat.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, we are.
And especially when Republicans are in power. Yes,
it's been much worse since 2017 when the new administration took over. Right. And since that time, there has been really a continuous effort to defund Planned Parenthood. And so the first year was a legislative attack where, as part of the ACA repeal law, they were trying to defund Planned Parenthood. When that didn't succeed, they've moved now to an administrative process.
But wait a minute. You say defund Planned Parenthood. So obviously you're saying the Planned Parenthood gets money from government.
Yes.
Okay. But it's been long time since, no money can be used to terminate a pregnancy.
That is correct.
So when they come at defunding Planned Parenthood, they're coming at what? They're coming at what? Giving women gynecological exams, birth control?
Exactly.
Because it's a done deal. There's no federal funds coming.
Right. There is no federal funds. We are audited annually to make sure there are no federal funds that go to abortion. But another point, the first year, that money that they were trying to take away was Medicaid reimbursement. So that was reimbursement for providing services, birth control services, and women exams to people who were on medical assistance. Now, when they weren't successful with that, they are going after what we call the Family Planning Program, the Federal Family Planning Program, which is Title X. And they are essentially saying that if you provide abortion services or you refer someone to an abortion, you cannot accept this money. And this is money that provides services to low-income women.
What percentage of the women that you see over a few blocks from here? What percentage are on that?
That use that fund?
Access care.
It's about 6,000 people a year. It's about a third of our people who come through the door.
Do you think those 6,000 women are even aware?
No.
Are they even aware that it could be this rule goes into effect next month?
May 3rd.
Okay, I'm just a little ahead of myself here.
But you're close. It's
in
almost
5
April.
weeks. Okay, in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
There are women who get their care from you because they are on that medical assistance.
Well, this isn't even medical assistance. So this is a special program that if you're below a certain income level, you can have free services.
Okay.
And it also covers, though, because there are so many people that, for example, are on the Affordable Care Act and they have insurance, but their insurance isn't that good, and they have low incomes because it has been mandated, and so they can't afford the co-pays, they can't afford the deductibles. And many people will come and they'll use their insurance and they owe everything. It doesn't even cover it. And so we also take those folks and we slide their fee to either zero or to whatever level on the sliding fee scale, so that even some folks with insurance are eligible if you end up with, a huge amount that you have to pay. So it helps people with lower incomes. So that's who is being targeted. Birth control for people who have lower incomes.
So this is an attack on the access to health care by poor women.
Yes. It's targeted specifically at poor women. And the people who really will be hurt are people in rural communities. So, for example, in Cambria County and Somerset County, where we have health centers, we are the only Title X provider. There are no others.
So
there are no community health centers. It's us. And so if we are not able to accept Title X services,
there's nowhere else for them to go.
Exactly.
Okay, so you're a poor woman in Somerset County, and you're used to getting your care through, and you don't know from Title X. I mean, that's
people
not right.
just know there's federal money.
They know that there's this money. They're in this program. Blah 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 blah. And if you're a poor person, you might not have a car. You might not have access to, there's not a lot of public transportation in Somerset County.
No.
So what happens to the woman who has nowhere else to go or easily can get to just to access basic health care?
Right.
So
that resource is gone. Yeah. But we, of course, have made a commitment that even if we lose our funding, we will not close our doors. We will figure out how to be open. We are fundraising. We are trying to raise enough money to cover that loss of funding.
And how much money do you need to
Well, we're
cover,
working to raise $1.2 million. And that would cover for several years, because if we lose it, we're, of course, anticipating that it would not come back during this current administration.
So you're saying that now would be a really good time if people give to Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania.
Yes.
No, seriously, because what you're giving is the gift of access to health care to poor women who live here.
Right.
They're about
Yes.
to lose it.
Yes. And we really are committed. And, you know,
So you mean you will do that free for them? I mean, those women.
our goal is to continue the program as it is with the same guidelines in place and fund it ourselves so that people have access because they have to. I mean, this is a basic, healthcare is a right, is a basic human right, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
people need to have this in order to control their lives. Being able to decide if and when you have kids is so important,
Yeah.
particularly for people who
have limited
income.
resources.
Exactly.
And I mean,
and
or-
that's why the program started in the first place. So this started back in 1970 because Congress realized that people needed to be able to space their families, they need their children, control their families, decide if and when they wanted to have kids. And it was a very popular program. There was actually a stamp, I think it was 1972, an 8-cent stamp. It says family planning on it to raise awareness of the importance of having access to birth control.
this occurs to me. This would be Richard Nixon.
Yes, it was. It was.
Man, how the
Things have
Republicans have
changed.
gone off the
Yeah.
rails, off the cliff.
Yeah. The other thing that I just want to point out with this, this is very unethical. And of course, they're all the big healthcare organizations, American Medical Association, ACOG, American Nurses Association, they're all
Against it?
Against this,
Yeah.
yes. And in fact, the AMA is the lead plaintiff in Planned Parenthood's lawsuit against this.
Okay, so any healthcare provider, doctors, nurses, they're saying to the government, "What the are you
Right.
doing?
Right.
This is insane. This will harm our patients."
It will harm our patients, and it also sets a terrible precedent because the government, the Department of Health and Human Services, is basically saying you are not allowed to tell a pregnant person that abortion is an option for them. which
When
is
it
terrible.
is, and it's
Legal.
legal.
So what happens if there is
You mean
another?
so they can stop and think? That's why it's called a gag rule. That's why it's
Yes.
so a doctor can't give a full disclosure of what is available to
Correct.
a family, a woman.
What they are allowed to do, if a person asks for an abortion referral, they can give them a list of primary care providers in their community who may or may not provide abortion, and they're not allowed to tell them if they provide abortion. And if you're at all familiar with Pennsylvania abortion law, you will know that it's very strict, it's very regulated, it's expensive and difficult to comply with, and there are no primary care providers that
None.
are providing abortion services.
None. Nobody.
So you would go through the exercise of giving them a list of family practice doctors who don't provide abortion, but you can't tell them that, and they can, call through that list. It's appalling.
It really is.
But it makes you think that, so this is the ideology of the people who are running HHS right now. So what if you have different people in there? What if you have people in there that don't believe in
birth
there's-
control, because those guys are rising up. What else?
Right, birth control.
They don't
Well,
believe in what?
But there are religious groups that don't believe in, for example, meat-based medications, and there are some. Some that don't believe in flu vaccines. There's religions that don't believe in heart transplants or certain heart surgeries because it's against their religion.
Okay.
So now
What if people
does this
like
set a
that
precedent?
have
Exactly.
So that
So this is
religious
actually
bureaucrats can literally intrude between
and
a
dictate
doctor
medical
and
care,
dictate medical
and that's
care.
exactly what's happening here. Someone else's religious belief, and for some of these folks, the other piece that they're doing, not to get too much into the weeds, but they're really changing the intent of the program. So it's gone from being a program where you have to provide all the medically approved methods of birth control to now they don't have to be medically approved and you can provide one.
Wait a
You
minute.
could get this money and provide the rhythm method.
Okay, wait a minute.
Or
So the
abstinence.
money that you've been getting to
Yes.
give real medicine to women, birth control, education, blah, 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 yep, is now going to go to some
It could.
religious group that
It could. They've changed the grant requirements.
so
and
that
they're
no, they are
actually-
going to send it to abstinence only.
They could, absolutely. Or someone that just promotes,
And wait a minute, that's my tax dollars, right?
But the intent is to help people be able to make their own, to control their fertility, and for people who have no money to have access to birth control. And this is what it's being turned to because of the ideology of the people running the program. And that's just wrong, despite what you think about birth control.
Right,
It is
exactly.
wrong that the government is doing this.
I can't believe it's 2000 and whatever the heck it is, and we're still here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going backwards.
Yeah, it's very frightening because there are all different beliefs out there about medical practices, and who's to say it's not another religion, another ideology getting control and making decisions about information you would get about a service you might need.
I just read this the other day. The Republican governor of Mississippi has signed a bill essentially banning abortions once doctors can detect a trace of a heartbeat with an ultrasound, which means that a woman who is like 6 weeks pregnant doesn't even know she's pregnant. And this is unconstitutional on its face.
It is unconstitutional.
And they know it, and the governor of Mississippi knows it, and he signed it, and this is all an effort to get some they're coming down the pike every 2 minutes to get these cases to the all new Trump Supreme Court.
Yes.
With Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, and we know Alito, and we know Thomas, a little unsure of Roberts, and they will overturn or eviscerate little by little, right? Roe v. Wade.
That's the plan.
So all these women, young women now, who just assume that they control their own medical fate, are going to find out what it was like
Right.
before Roe.
It will either be so inaccessible with barriers or it will be overturned and go back to the states. And then you'll have a patchwork of
And then here in
access and not
Pennsylvania, you
access.
won't be able to access. It will go to the states. So if you live in a red state controlled by Republicans, as we do, except for the governor and our Supreme Court, but the
Yes.
legislature,
The legislature right now is not supportive. You're correct. Some states have already taken the steps. West Virginia, in the last election, voted to overturn or to make abortion illegal if it is turned over to the state. So we already know West Virginia will be. Alabama is another one that did that. So some states are proactively.
they're so
already-
excited about being able to control women
Exactly.
that they will, even before the fact,
Yes.
state. In this article about the Mississippi law, there is a vignette that really struck me because it's something I've noticed that a lot of people who are opposed to like Planned Parenthood and others, they all or opposed to gay marriage, as soon as they personally, like someone in their family or something comes home to them because it is that personal and that close, they all of a sudden see the light. So listen to this one story. This guy is a Republican member of the Mississippi State Legislature who has always been anti-abortion. He voted against this law. And here's what he told his colleagues. My niece was pregnant, was told that her fetus had no bladder, no functional kidneys. The doctor explained to her that she could carry the child throughout the remainder of the gestation, the entire 9 months, and deliver that baby live into this world. But once it was born, once it was delivered, it would live 2-3 days, and those 2 to 3 days would be excruciating and agonizing for the baby and for that mother. Who are we to sit in judgment on their decision? But it took that coming right to his sister's child to be able to, why can't people, why aren't these, if we can get these kinds of stories out there that humanize this,
But you know,
this
a lot of
demagogued issue.
You're right, and a lot of those stories are out there. You're reading it from the newspaper.
New York
But people,
Times,
People don't Yeah, people don't believe it until they're in that situation. And we see that at our health center as well. That people will come in and say, "Oh gosh, I'm not pro-choice, I'm anti-choice, but my situation's different." And everybody's situation is different, and people have very, very difficult circumstances and very sad stories. But the ability, I think, for people to be empathetic, to realize that everybody's the same. I mean, we all have difficult things that face us, and the best thing you can do is let people make their own decisions.
Of course.
Like, trust women to make these decisions.
Right.
And make sure that birth control is available to people so that you can plan your pregnancies and you're not in a situation where you find yourself unable to afford birth control or to find it, or the barriers are so great that you just can't get it.
There's part of me that's having an out-of-body experience listening to you and thinking, I can't believe that we're
talking about this all these years later. And here now, yes, talking about this.
Planned Parenthood also engages in a big part of it, sex education, right? I mean, you have people dedicated to that's what they do.
Correct.
And you go into schools and stuff. But schools are under constant also pressure from these same groups so that our kids are not getting comprehensive, usually, sex education in schools.
Yeah, in Pennsylvania, there's no law about sex education. Some states do have laws that say, you must provide these elements of sex education. So for us, it's a district-by-district decision. And so in some schools do a better job than others. But you're right. Just basic sex education is still controversial.
I'm going to share some facts. In the United States, the maternal death rate, the number of women dying because they are pregnant, has dramatically increased over the last 30 years, specifically for Black women.
Yes.
Who are 3 to 4 times more likely to die as a result. These are we're talking about women that already are at risk, women that now we're going to pull even more access to good care from.
And statistically, with the Title X program, there are more women of color who use that program. Sure. It's disproportionate to that population, and of course, people who don't have financial resources too.
And stop and think. What everybody is now seeing is that depending on where you are born, the color of your skin, the bottom line in your bank account, that is one of the greatest determinants of whether or not you will be a healthy person. So the poor woman in Somerset County is already
at a disadvantage.
Yeah. And here are the folks in Washington making sure that she will be even more so. And you see, this is also a group that is politically not organized, doesn't have a voice.
Right, they're not powerful. You're exactly right.
It is so easy to just keep piling on. So your Planned Parenthood is one of 53 in the country.
Correct.
You serve like a whole hunk of how many counties in Pennsylvania?
Well, we actually have 26 counties in Pennsylvania, but we are concentrated in the southwest.
You're also concentrated, I imagine, where the most people are and the cities are.
There's a lot of rural space in Pennsylvania.
So all of that rural space, women really have to proactively and often.
It is harder. One of the things that we are working on right now is online health services, though. So through basically telemedicine, people will be able to get birth control pills. We'll be doing like UTIs and basic infections and things like that eventually. But we're trying to get more birth control available through other ways for people in areas that don't have a facility or a Title X organization.
So this is a done deal, this gag rule?
Well, it's gone through public comment. 500,000 people registered their concerns and their opposition to it.
And who listened?
Yes, and it came out on the other end even more more egregious and
so they just doubled down worse. As usual.
Yes.
So
and nothing changed. The comments didn't make a difference. So so we're in the final phase. The final rule has been issued, and there's a 60-day period after it's published, and that's the phase that we're in now. There are a couple court cases, probably 6 across the country, several with Planned Parenthood protection provided if this would be overturned or if there would be an injunction, but
here is the other thing with this administration working night and day to pack the federal judiciary. The odds of you often won in courts. Courts would say, what? This is unconstitutional.
Right.
But with them packing all these courts, that becomes less likely to happen.
Right. You're absolutely right. And ultimately, if all the courts hear it, it ends up at the Supreme Court. A similar gag rule did go to the Supreme Court from the Reagan administration, and it was upheld. But since then, there have been some changes. This rule is a little bit different. Plus, there are things like the Affordable Care Act that provides protections that you can't provide lower standard of health care to people who are poor.
Oh, you believe that even has to be said. But let us remember that the president has now said he's going after that.
Exactly. So that is one of the protections that we might have for this. But you're right. Now that's up in the air again.
Beth writes, why don't women attack the availability of men's ED drugs? Is that
erectile dysfunction?
Oh, yes, excuse me. How come, they're readily available, huh?
They are readily available, covered by insurance.
They're covered by insurance.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Why don't women go after that? Or can't we get the pill reclassified as an estrogen disorder? Then it, too, is an ED drug. I don't know. God!
Yeah, it's...
Okay, but that points out the just innate sexism that's at work here. Is there any law you're aware of that similarly, any laws that similarly make a man's body political territory, that state legislatures come in and say, no, you can't do that?
I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of any.
Anyone? Can you think of any?
And people have even pointed out that, some religions consider, every egg needs to be a fertilized egg. But every sperm doesn't have a function, right?
No, they just swimming around trying to get lucky.
The way a woman's fertility is treated is very different from a man's fertility.
And why would that be? Do you think it's because it's men who've been writing all the laws?
Yes, I would imagine that's the case.
This is why I say that you are not in a padded room. Makes me, that you just keep coming back to work.
Well, you just have to put some of those things on a shelf.
There you go.
When Viagra first came out, everybody it was just like, of course that would be available. And of course it sails through all the processes and comes onto the market.
Yeah, so Viagra is available, which means more women might be getting pregnant. Right. But to hell with their ability to...
And at that point, we were really fighting to get, contraceptive coverage in all the insurance plans and,
So insurance plans often didn't cover.
They didn't before
Until
the Affordable
before
Care
Obamacare.
Act. Yes.
Before Obamacare, women, oh God, it just makes me crazy.
You did not have a guarantee. It was up to the employer.
Right.
And now we still have those issues around the conscience clause and stuff like that. But no, at the time it was like, everybody was like, well, wait, you can get Viagra and men have an absolute right to that, but women don't have an absolute right in their health care to get birth control? Yeah.
And for want of birth control, there's they get pregnant?
Right.
for want of Viagra, what happens to a guy? Oh, what be the consequence there? Excuse me. See, this is why I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it in a million years. Okay, so what I'm getting out of this conversation is we need to step up. And if you care about this issue at all, Planned Parenthood is going to lose access to these funds, which, forget Planned Parenthood, which is to say that thousands of women,
4 million women across the country use
and
this.
thousands
Yes.
right here, and they don't even know it. They're going to be blindsided, and they will lose access unless these guys can raise 1.2, you said, million, which will allow them. And let me tell you something. I know these guys. If they say that's where that money's going, that's where that money's going, okay? It will go to giving those women continued access because their government has pulled the rug out from under their health and access to care. So how do people contribute to you?
We have a website. You can find Planned Parenthood at ppwp.org. Also, can call me. I'm happy to talk to anyone. My number is 412-258-9530. Happy to share more information if anyone needs it. But, you know, I also hope that people, as they think about this, are really outraged. It's so infuriating that the government is doing this. It's wrong. It's just wrong on so many levels.
Do you think, I think women will be harmed physically, emotionally? Women might die because of this.
Women could. And, a perfect example is what happened in Texas. And through a whole process, that state decided that they wanted to kick Planned Parenthood out of Medicaid. They did. They stopped taking Medicaid money for family planning and decided to fund it themselves. And so they had about a third of what the pot of money had originally been. They got rid of Planned Parenthood and other providers. And the result has been more unintended pregnancies, less people getting pap smears, less people getting breast exams, increased rates of sexually transmitted infections, like all the things that you would think would happen if people don't have access to this health care. And for everybody who says, we need to reduce the number of abortions, then increase birth control availability.
Then increase
Don't put up
everything
these barriers.
they do.
Yes.
Planned Parenthood would like nothing better than never to do another abortion because nobody gets pregnant when they don't want to.
Exactly. And that's what
Planned Parenthood is about.
Yes. And that's probably my biggest frustration. We could manage this situation. We could reduce the number of abortions in this country if we would just remove all the barriers, all the roadblocks, and let women decide for themselves if they want to use birth control. Make it accessible, make it affordable, which is what this program tries to do on a small basis. Because it's not a whole lot of money that goes in. It's only like $286 million a year for the whole country. Yes. And it's very, you have to be very poor to get these free services. But we could make a difference if we really wanted to in this country. And that's what's so frustrating. That's probably my biggest frustration.
Well, I hope you guys hearing this will not just, mutter and get angry, but act. And one of the things, that you could do is write a check, whatever you can afford. If everybody did that, we could help the women who are about to get blindsided. May 3rd is when this kicks in?
May 3rd.
Some poor soul who's got an appointment for May 4th is going to show up at Planned Parenthood and find out she doesn't have what? Can't access?
Well, that would be if we, if we didn't make the pledge and the commitment to figure out a way to move forward. And we need to do that. But
so
that's
you're saying
that
you're
is
doing it.
Well, we're committed to it. So
yeah, but you
we're-
can't do it. You can't conjure, but unless you're going to start making counterfeit bills
We
in the
definitely
basement.
need to raise money. That's why we are raising money
Jeez.
right now. Absolutely.
And this was not a kind of a fund that you had expected to have. This is something
Yes.
above and
Yes.
beyond
This is
what normally.
Yeah, this is replacing money that we will no longer have. Yes. And it is money for providing services. It's not just a pot of money to do with what we want. It directly goes towards serving people who don't have health care.
Serving them such as, let's just get a list
All
of the
right.
things that now they won't be able to.
It's
Access.
well woman exams, breast and cervical cancer screening, sexually transmitted disease testing and treatment. It's HIV testing. It is hepatitis C testing. We
Birth
also
control,
do birth
control.
control, all the methods of birth control. We also do PrEP, which is the pre-exposure prophylaxis for people who are most at risk. There is a whole set of services, that well woman services that we provide under the Title X program. Even advanced cancer screening, colposcopy services. All
What's
those are.
colposcopy?
It's for someone that has a bad pap smear and they need additional treatment. It's like a big microscope where our clinicians can look, and then they can take biopsies and then get someone into the appropriate treatment. It's a huge, important step for cervical cancer prevention. But these are all things that are so important to people who don't have access to mainstream health care or don't have money to be in the private insurance market.
Okay. What else would you say that people can do for you? I mean, what is it? That money, when they go to the voting booth, should they be thinking of you? I don't know. What can people
Well,
do?
yeah, money, votes always count.
Yeah, God
we are
knows.
also kicking off sort of a Protect Title X campaign. So we will be doing some events, some rallies and things like that. We are hoping at some point there will be some legislative activity around this that perhaps not before May 3rd, but moving forward, that some of our elected officials will get behind the Title X program and do what they can to, they can't reverse this gag rule, but they can certainly look at other pots of money, other ways to bring resources to poor women. And so there will be different opportunities for people to engage just in the advocacy side.
It just, that taking care from poor women, it's like taking candy from a baby. Let's pick on the most vulnerable people just to rouse a certain crowd in this country.
Well, right, it's to be punitive. This is clearly directed at Planned Parenthood. And so what they're trying to do is take away our money, or not our money, taking away money that could come to Planned Parenthood.
Focused to Planned
for these
Parenthood, but
services.
you're saying we ain't going anywhere,
We're
and
not-
all it's hurting are these
men.
women.
Exactly. It's hurting women. It is also hurting, I contend, our whole ethical medical society.
Yep. Because that's what these guys do. Kim Evert, I can't thank you enough. I appreciate all the extraordinary work you do.
Well, Lynn, thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about Title X
Anytime.
and talk about our campaign and the work that we do.
Okay.
And I'm happy to do that
Thank
anytime
you.
as well.
Anytime.
Thank
Bless
you.
you. You can skedaddle back, walk through hordes of screaming lunatics to get back to your desk. And are they out there today?
Yes.
They are.
Yes. Of course.
They are. Oh, God.
Yes.
Oh, Lord.
And I might add, it's a very nice day out there.
Yeah,
today,
it is a
so,
nice day for
yeah,
them.
yeah.
It should only
Lots of
rain.
people out there
Yeah,
today.
right. Okay. Love you. Thank you. Bye. Damn. Can you imagine the courage it takes for her? It's not like people like her have not been targeted in truly violent ways, right? God almighty. All right. All I can say is please give. I will. I don't have my checkbook here, but I will definitely be writing a check specifically for that. I'm being reminded that the play Wiesenthal, Nazi Hunter, as you know, we interviewed the producer and playwright and actor on the program some weeks ago. That is showing tonight at the August Wilson Center, and tickets are still available. The play starts at 7:30 tonight, so something you might want to do. I know my sister and my mom saw it in California, and they said it was incredible. It's just 90 minutes long. So that's another possibility of things you can do. Barbara has sent me something from a report about prisons in this country, and oh my, boy, there really is a war on women. Nationwide, women's state prison populations have grown, good God, almost 1,000% over the last 40 years? 834%. Jesus. In 40 years. Yeah, we'll take their health care away. We'll take their ability to be able to plan their families, have some control over their lives, and we'll incarcerate them like we've never incarcerated them before. In fact, we're incarcerating women now more than double the pace of the growth among incarcerating men, which is already off the charts. God, guys. Okay. What else we got? I got to tell you, this is just a heads up. A heads up about Venezuela. It's not something we're talking about a lot, but I couldn't help but note that Russia has sent troops there. They've sent Russian military troops. Now, it sounds exactly like the Vietnam War started with us sending, we're just sending some, special people over to help the Vietnamese, just a few hundred. That's all. We're just in an advisory capacity. That's what the Russians are just doing now. Russian troops in our hemisphere is the kind of thing that can cause a war. Yeah, just saying. Note that. It's an interesting case being brought by Housing and Urban Development, and normally that's Ben Carson's thing, but I like this case. They're suing Facebook. What? Why would HUD be suing Facebook? Well, this grows out of an investigation that began under the Obama administration, which makes more sense. But when the findings came out, it's quite clear that it's exactly what we were talking about yesterday when I was giving you this dystopian picture of, micro-targeting by governments using all the data that Facebook collects and following us literally and figuratively and targeting us. That this is so advertisers can know exactly where they're most likely to find fertile ground, right? And so here we have Housing and Urban Development saying that Facebook and its targeted advertising to people on their platform is creating, encouraging, enabling, and causing unlawful housing discrimination. That is a fascinating case because they're only targeting, right? Stop and think about it. They know who they want to target. So they're not even letting, and we can figure black people, poorer black people, they're not even letting them see certain housing ads. You don't even get to know that there's a market because the markets now are specifically created by virtue of all this information that Facebook has. I think this is a great case, and I'm sure we'll hear more about it. God. What else do I got here? We have this frightening story in the Post-Gazette today that would be especially frightening for young people living in Washington and Westmoreland counties, right here, right outside town. You got Clarence in Canonsburg. He's sitting in it. Too old, though, to be too upset. But this is about some people starting to worry that there's this extremely rare cancer, and yet there are a whole bunch of cases of it turning up in this tight little circle in southwestern Pennsylvania. And it's called Ewing sarcoma. And it's very deadly. Get this. I mean, here's the thing that got me. Only 200 to 250 cases of this cancer occur in the United States in a year. Now, that is a rare cancer. 200 to 250 in the entire United States per year. And yet, they're popping up left and right here in this little space. It says here that based on a report by a concerned resident and by some researchers from St. Vincent College, the prevalence of these Ewing sarcoma cases in Westmoreland County has gotten the attention of the Pennsylvania Department of Health and the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They have launched a study. The state has expanded the investigation to include the Cannon-McMillan School District and Washington County, because the string of these cases began like just about 10 years ago. This is recent. And it's been kids, teenagers to young 20s, and they're getting diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. Let me just, 200 to 250 cases a year in the entire United States. And listen to this. Let me just read you this because this is spooky. Late in 2008, Alyssa Chambers, an 18-year-old Cannon-McMillan senior, was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma, and she survived. She beat it, and she's become an oncology nurse at UPMC Shadyside. But then there's Kyle Dellier, who lived in the area too, Cecil Township. He was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma in 2011. He died in 2013 at the age of 27. In June 2018, David Cobb also, and he's now having chemo. 21-year-old Canon Macmillan graduate also just posted news that he has been diagnosed as having Ewing sarcoma. And he played baseball with one of the deceased guys from the same thing. And everybody's trying to think, what the hell? There's got to be something. And he said, well, I worked at a golf course and was exposed to a lot of chemicals, weed killers and things. And our house is in a valley surrounded by 4 gas wells. I heard about natural gas, and my mom's concerned about methane. So there's a whole bunch of other cancers, too. Jesus, I mean, this like begs for scrutiny. There are 9 cases right now. Wait a minute. In addition to the Ewing sarcoma cases, there's a 14-year-old girl from Cecil Township. She died of a brain and spinal cord cancer just 2 months ago. And 7 current students and 2 preschoolers in the Canon Macmillan district have other types of cancer beyond the Ewing sarcoma. 2 cases of bone cancer, 1 joint cancer, another kind, kidney cancer, liver cancer, 2 leukemias, and a 2-year-old with cancer that they don't quite know exactly what it is. And also another former student, Canon Macmillan, who's now 21, was just diagnosed with leukemia. This kind of concentration means something's going on. Something's going on. And it's striking down children and young adults. Some people think that's a big fracking area. Fracking creates all kinds of pollutants. There's also, I think, a landfill somewhere in the area that does have radioactive substances in it. I mean, man, if I were living in the Canon Macmillan School District, I don't know. That's scary. I'm just passing it on to you. I mean, I read it and it freaked me out. So, let us end today with this bizarre story out of Scotland that I came across. There's a bridge, an old quaint bridge built in the 1800s, looks to be stone, and it crosses this big gorge with a little bit of a water under it, and it's in Dumbarton, Scotland, and the people who live there know that for some reason hundreds of dogs, their dogs, have jumped off that bridge, many to their deaths. Many have survived, but I'll give you just one instance. This is a woman named Lottie McKinnon. And she said it was 3 years ago she was walking with her border collie, Bonnie. Of course, a dog in Scotland is named Bonnie. Come on. You can do better than that. She was walking over the Overton Bridge in Dumbarton. And here's her quote. Something overcame Bonnie as soon as we approached the bridge. At first she froze, but then she became possessed by a strange energy and ran and jumped right off the parapet. Now, Bonnie was a lucky dog. Bonnie survived the 50-foot drop. But a lot of the dogs do not. At least 50 dogs have been known to die jumping off the Overton Bridge like lunatics. And so it's now known as the dog suicide bridge. And anyone who knows anything about dogs knows a dog would never commit suicide. Dogs are nothing if not full of joyfulness and life. Researchers think that about 300 dogs have inexplicably jumped off the bridge, and 50 of them have died. So you do have you got a chance at survival. There's been a book written about it, trying to figure out what's going on, but the mystery remains. Now, there are people who say, well, it's because, down below is a wooded area and they catch the scent of critters, like there's mink down there and other smaller mammals, and a dog smells that and goes, woof, and doesn't realize maybe that wall they're jumping over, has this huge drop on the other side. But then people discount that by saying, well, yeah, but there's lots of bridges like this around here. And there's also animals under the bridges that those dogs would smell, and they ain't jumping off those bridges. Only this bridge. The bridge was built in 1895. It's essentially an extension of a driveway to this huge manor house. And of course, there are people who also think that there's something going on that's like about ghosts. And there are stories from inside that manor house that it is. And after some guy, a teacher of religion and philosophy, who went and tried to get to the bottom of the mystery, he ends up saying, after 11 years of research, I'm convinced it's a ghost that is behind this. So there you have it. It's not clear why the dogs jump. It reminded me as I read that, though, when that woman was describing Bonnie, first of all, like freezing and then getting agitated. Not my current dog, but the dog I had before, there was one house in the neighborhood still there. And when we would walk by it, I stopped walking by it because that house terrified the dog. She would get to a point at the house and like almost drop to the sidewalk, cringing, her ears back and looking. And I would literally have to sort of like, come on, it's okay, come on. And it happened, I thought at first it was something, but then it happened again, bang, right at that spot. And believe me, there was nothing. I look, there's nothing there. And I decided, sort of like that philosophy professor, something's in there, something happened there, and the dog knows it. There's a body or something buried. Now, my current dog, we walked by that house just about 5 days ago. And my current dog was like, not absolutely happy as can be. And, he lifted his leg and did a little business, and a window opens on the second story of the house. Got my attention. I look up, and there's this big, beefy guy in a wife-beater shirt leaning out. And I was startled, and I said, hi. And he said, I would appreciate it if you did not allow your dog to relieve himself in my yard. And I said, okie doke. And we went on our way. That's the first time something like, where the hell is a dog supposed to relieve himself? Jesus. Same house. That's all I'm saying. Same house. And I noted it's for sale right now. If you want to buy a house from a jerk who wears wife-beater t-shirts and sits in his bedroom waiting for some poor dog and its owner to walk by and might have a ghost in the basement. I'm just saying. All right, that be it for me. I'll see ya tomorrow. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.